I think a lot of people feel off mentally and physically, but they can't figure out like why. You as a medical professional, when you zoom out, what do you think's actually happening that's silently damaging people's health?
Well, I mean, I think that we have an epidemic of inflammation. Like that's totally clear to me. And it depends on how you look at it, Doug. So we can look at it from like, do you experience the symptoms of inflammation? Chronic low-grade inflammation, to be clear. And those symptoms, their whole body, literally affecting you from head to toe. That include headaches, migraines, brain fog, difficulty with focus, difficulty with cognitive tasks, affected mood, anxiety, congestion in the nose, sore throat, chronic cough, racing heart, um, skin outbreaks, acne, rosacea, psoriasis, eczema. It could be gut symptoms, bloating, could be joint issues, could be body aches, could be difficulty recovering, could be difficulty with exercise. Doug, out of curiosity, have you what happens to you in terms of your exercise performance if you eat fast food and then you go to the gym?
It's crap. And that's the way I think
Exactly.
and that's the way I think of inflammation is I think a lot of people it's like pain. It's like if I eat like crap, I feel pain in my gut. I feel pain sometimes in my joints, my shoulder, my hips.
Yeah, but those to me are like even more severe manifestations. Like you're actually outwardly manifesting symptoms. Whereas to me, like an example of inflammation is you eat fast food, you try to go to the gym, your exercise performance is crap, right? And it's that's not like a chronic inflammation, but basically you ate junk, and because you ate junk, your body is inflamed and you're not able to actually exercise and perform. Whereas if you ate nothing at all or you ate a clean meal, you would have been fine, right? So, or Doug, you can look at the list of medical conditions that are associated with inflammation. When I was writing my new book, Plant Powered Plus, I came up with over 130 health conditions where, like, basically, I'll pull the study and I'll show you, hey, here's the study that shows this condition is associated with inflammation, right? And the World Health Organization says that 3 out of 5 people, this is what they die from: chronic inflammatory health conditions. So, so to me, like, I feel like we have an epidemic of inflammation. So then the follow-up question is like, what the heck is going on here? And the argument that I would make after spending 3 years of research writing this book is that this is a problem that starts in our gut. We have an epidemic of dysbiosis that is in parallel. And the fact that they're in parallel, I am completely and totally convinced is not just, hey, this is happening at the same time, it's an association. No, this is causation. That a damaged gut creates inflammation, and that inflammation creates a damaged gut, and that is a vicious cycle. And that is where most of America, most of the industrial world is right now.
So where do you land in today's climate as far as what causes dysbiosis and poor gut health that leads to inflammation? Because you hear a lot of times people will say it's carbs, it's sugar. We've mentioned processed foods, which I think everyone kind of agrees are bad for us. But what's your current stance on what wrecks gut health?
Okay, so it's, first of all, your gut microbiome is highly personalized. So there is no one in the world. Doug, if you had a twin, you don't, do you?
No, thankfully for the world.
I
But
was gonna say it'd be kind of cool if you did. We could like, we could play twin games. But anyway, where like one of you shows up and we're not sure who it is. So anyway, all right. If you had a twin, you would only share about 35% of the same microbes, even though you literally have the exact same genetic code, even though you were born from the same mother, that you grew up in the same house. So you shared a lot of the same characteristics, but you'd only share about a third of the same microbes. You would be mostly different. All right. And your microbiome, Doug, it tells a story. And that story, it is it is rigorously truthful to the point that, like it or not, the truth is told in your gut. And that includes the food that you eat, but it's not just the food that you eat. So you mentioned sugar. Sure, that's a problem. Unhealthy fat's a problem. To me, excessive salt is a problem. We have pretty clear data on this, Doug. And And so is ultra processed foods for the most part in terms of the additives that exist in the ultra processed foods. I'm not claiming every single ultra processed food is bad. What I'm saying is a lot of them are. And we got to sort that out. It's a complex topic. But it's not just a food thing, Doug, right? It's also the way in which we live our lives. There was a lifestyle that existed for millions of years. And we maintained that lifestyle reasonably consistently until about 100 years ago. And then we went way off the reservation. And we are completely disconnected. The pattern that we lived in, that our biology was matched to, is no longer the pattern that we observe in our daily lives. We have moved to a completely different spot. We are living completely differently, and it's mismatched to our biology, which was basically galvanized through millions of years of evolution to fit a certain pattern. So we're not active, right? That's an exercise issue. That's a complex topic, by the way, because in our modern world, what we have normalized is, hey, you go to the gym and that suffices, that fulfills. Is that the way that we lived? Or were we just functionally active all day long? Right? What did we not, at a minimum, not that long ago, have to walk or ride a bike to get to places? Right? Like, how did my grandfather get to school? Because they didn't have cars. So, and think about that. That's 2 generations removed from where I am right now. And so, but also, Doug, and I think that you'll appreciate this, it's also our relationships with other people, which are highly important. Our sense of purpose and understanding where we fit within a broader framework of a higher power. And it's also trauma. And these things, like trauma, for example, for you can speak to this better than I can, although I can speak to my experiences. The things that are in your past that you're not proud of, that you're ashamed of, you're pushing those out of the conscious mind, right? But unfortunately, the problem is that the body keeps the score. The body doesn't care that you don't want to think about it. It's in the non-conscious mind. It's still manifesting in your gut. So when I say it's brutally, rigorously truthful, this is what I'm talking about. It's not just your choices. It's also your past and part of your history that still continues to manifest in the gut. So the point is that if we were to say there's one thing, there's not one thing. That's insane. This is the composite of the totality of your lifestyle, the totality of your story. But the problem is that if I were to say, hey, what's the one thing? We have normalized a life that was never normal. That's the one thing.
So it's a much bigger problem than just not eating carbs or processed foods or sugar. It's more of a holistic approach we got to look into, because you're right. You could eat healthy all day long, but if your home life is crap, or if you haven't dealt with your past, that's going to eat at your ability to make progress.
Many of the most challenging patients that I've worked with, people that I struggled to get better, who had, in many cases, chronic inflammatory health conditions like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. Many of these people, they were doing the right diet, they were exercising, they were sleeping, they were meditating, they followed all the rules and the advice that they hear on your show or me on other shows or podcasts or in my books. And yet they weren't better. Why? Because they were being held back by their past. Because they had a trauma. And the trauma is the thing that is bad. It's painful. You don't want to talk about it. Many times there's shame around it. So you tuck it into the corner and you try to pretend that it's not there, even though in your mind you know it's there, but you're trying to pretend it's not. It's like a child looking away from the thing that scares them. And that thing, Doug, this is not, words like holistic, 25 years ago, this conversation that you and I are having right now would have come across as woo-woo. And I'm here to tell you, we absolutely, with total clarity, understand the physiology of what's happening in the body when it comes to these types of things of trauma and stress and loneliness and being spiritually devoid. We absolutely know what's happening inside the body. I'm happy to dig into that. This is not woo woo. This is physiology.
Yeah, let's go there. And I think I want to go there because when I think of holistic health, I think it synonymously gets looped into like alternative medicine or like anti traditional medicine, which when I think of it, it just means looking at the whole picture, holistic, like WHOL istic. Um, and making sure that you're addressing your relationships, making sure you have a like a spiritual practice that works for you, making sure you have meaning and purpose, like all of that stuff is important because otherwise you'll end up like me and you'll be like, hiding in your bedroom on a Saturday night eating chicken and broccoli with, afraid to see your friends because your whole identity is wrapped up on the way that you look in the mirror. Right. And and that's where it goes if you're not careful.
Yeah, and I think that the what I've learned as a medical doctor is that we create division of labor and subspecialization, right? I'm a gastroenterologist. I'm also board certified as an internal medicine doctor. Internal medicine doctors specialized in their own way. I'm not like as an internal medicine doctor, you can't know everything about every field. You can't be you can't be an expert in the way that a gastroenterologist or a cardiologist or an oncologist, right? Like ultimately you have to get good at specific things and then you have to divide up the labor and trade off to someone else. And that's the limitation of the human brain. The body doesn't care. The body doesn't care how we think about it as humans. The body is going to work the way that it works. And it is whole body. Things that happen in one place can affect things that are occurring in other places by the fraction of a second on a microscopic level throughout the entirety of your body. It's beautiful, it's exciting, it's overwhelming to think about like some of the numbers associated with this, Doug. Like let me give you a quick example. So every second that you and I have sat here talking to one another, our body is producing 3.8 million new cells every second. Okay. Now, most of those, the number one type of cell is the red blood cell, which carries blood. Like, that's what you need in order to basically deliver oxygen to your tissues. But the number two cell is actually in the gut barrier. So your intestines, all 20 to 25 feet, are lined with a layer of cells, a single layer of cells that basically its job is a bit like airport security. It's supposed to like allow things that are safe to come in, but keep stuff that's scary out. And so every second though, Doug, in our gut, we are installing 450,000 new cells into our gut barrier. So like, as we sit here by the second, we have an opportunity to support those cells, make them healthy, install them properly, make sure that they're properly bound to other cells through proteins. We have the opportunity to do that every single second. And so, I guess the point is the majesty of the body is wild and incredible.
Was there ever a point in your personal life or experience with patients where your views evolved to think more about things like what we're talking about? Because I know like
Totally.
in years past, we had conversations about the gut. It was very nutrition focused, very habit focused when it came to food. But now it seems like that's kind of not a back burner part of the conversation. I'm sure we'll get there, but it's not at the forefront of your message right now.
Well, I mean, nutrition remains to me the number one lever that the average person can pull. Now, let me say this. So in my new book, I started with a note from me, the author, to the reader. And here's what I said. This is the basis of this. Is you're going to read this book, and as an author, unfortunately, I can only write one book. If you were my patient, I would personalize my care. I would hear your story. I would understand what's going on. I would create a diagnosis and create a personal plan that would be completely tailored to you. As an author, I can't do that. I can only write one book. But when you read this book, your experience is going to be different than other people because of the experiences that you've had during your life, because of the context, because of the environment that you're in. And you're going to have these moments where you're like, that's the thing. That's an aha moment. So for the vast knowing what we know, which is that the average American, 60% of their calories come from ultra processed foods, right? Knowing what we know, seeing that roughly 90% of America is metabolically unwell right now, right? And not to mention the, emergence of autoimmune diseases and other chronic inflammatory health conditions. I see diet as the number one lever that a person can pull if they're part of that, majority, which are following that pattern, right? Like if I could change that, I would change that. I want to continue to have that conversation. But I also don't think that that's the only form of healing that exists. And in some cases, I feel like it's overemphasized because for a lot of people, that's not actually the thing that they need to heal. So I want to open up a conversation about what are these other things that are out there that are opportunities for healing. So in my new book, part of what I talk about is like the patterns and rhythms of our daily life, which you could call a circadian rhythm, right? And how we are not getting what our body needs in the way that we approach that. And there's also an entire conversation about the brain-gut connection, which you and I started to touch on just a moment ago, of how we connect with other people, how we connect with our spiritual purpose. Look, Doug, I look out in the world. I mean, you open up the internet, you can see this. People are angry, people are sad, people are lonely. What's missing? That's not a nutrition issue. You're not gonna remedy that loneliness, sadness, anger. You're not gonna remedy that by increasing fiber intake. There's something that's missing. And so for those people, I need to advocate to provide what's missing, because if I want them well, which is happy, joyful, optimistic for their future, feeling a sense of purpose and being aligned with that purpose, that's what I want people to be, then I need to be willing to step up and call that out.
You're not going to cut out seed oils and fix loneliness, right?
No, you're not going to cut out seed oils and fix loneliness. And look, so seed oils, I mean, we could talk about seed oils. The way I see it, you don't need them. I don't like the old debate about them. To me, feels a bit silly. Because like, why would you not opt for extra virgin olive oil? I don't know why we would really want the seed oil when you could do better. Clearly, that's like categorically agreed upon by everyone. So, but nonetheless, I also think that sometimes these conversations, they're a distraction. Are we really making progress?
And that's why I kind of like jokingly brought that up, because I feel like the things that get most attention on the internet are things like that. And people will tune into the negativity of that just because of how our minds are wired. I'm guilty of that at times. We talked about this before we recorded. Like we're humans, right? And I think that when we talk about things like spirituality, God, people tend to kind of tune out because they're like, "Oh my gosh, is this conversation going to? Why am I listening to a nutrition episode or a gut health episode, and we're talking about spirituality?" And I think that can be an issue, because I think what has helped me in my own like spiritual walk is the ability and openness to learn and listen.
Yeah.
And I think what's hurt me is when people try to jam things down your throat. I think what we're going to talk about here for the next few minutes isn't that. It's more to be like, okay, like let's look at this holistically and see how we can make this fit to improve your life. So I'd love to hear, like, with kind of teeing you up that way, like what happened in your life or just in your observance that has really gotten you more excited to talk about this part of overall well-being, and how can people begin to like think about that for themselves?
Well, I tend to write about the things. This is forgive me for like my personal life experience that informs where I see opportunities for healing. But there have been many times in my life, Doug, where I'm the one who needed the healing, right? That I was the one who was sad, that I was the one who was struggling, that I was the one who was metabolically unwell, 50 pounds overweight with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, that I was the one who was like literally seeing the world in shades of gray and basically laying under a blanket in a dark room because I didn't want to go outside and see anyone. That's where I was, 14 years ago. On the outside, I looked amazing. My resume was sick. Seriously, my resume was sick. I couldn't have accomplished more. I was broken and sad on the inside. And I didn't know how to fix that. And when I wrote Fiber Fueled, which came out in 2020, it was very easy for me to talk about how nutrition fixed my problems, because that wasn't a risky conversation for me. So that's what I led with. And it was true. Nutrition helped me a lot. That is not the only thing that I needed to be well, like for sure. But the other things that have really informed my life, there's a lot of shame there. And so I wasn't prepared to come forward and discuss those things in my book, Fiber Fueled, in 2020. And then I lost my dad. And a lot of the complexity in my life stems from the relationship I had with my father. And my dad passed in January of 2020. And if you've read my first book, then you can open up to the dedication, which is right in the front. And you see what I say to him. And that was just after he had passed. But there's an entire journey that I've been on, Doug, that goes back to my childhood. So, like, shall we go there and discuss this? So when I was 7, I had a great childhood. I played outside all the time, built forts, loved basketball, rode bikes everywhere. And when I was 7 in second grade one day, my mom picked me up with the van full of stuff. And there was a little spot that was reserved for me, and I slid into that spot. And we drove 7 hours away. And it was me, my mom, my 2 younger brothers. I was the oldest of 3 boys. But my dad wasn't there. And I started over at a new school with people I didn't know. And I didn't see my dad for a long time. And I didn't really know what was going on. And we were poor. And then the court systems in New York ordered us to come back. So we went back to Syracuse, where I grew up. And this was the 1980s. And the way that the court system dealt with a familial conflict of, like, what do we do with the kids? I mean, all I can tell you is what I know, which is what happened, which is that basically they assigned a bunch of psychologists and court appointed counselors that were there to talk to me to figure out what was going on. And so I would have to go and do these sessions where I'm talking to these people, and they're doing sort of in their way, probing questions. And I was smart enough to know that the choices that I made with my words would impact the court system and whether I got to spend time with my mom or my dad. And in that setting, as a 7, 8, 9-year-old. Um, all I know is that it felt to me like I had to make a choice of who was the good guy and who was the bad guy. And I held my dad accountable for all of our problems. So, Dad, why didn't you fix this? You're supposed to be the leader of this family. You're supposed to be the man who would provide to us and make sure we're okay. And you didn't follow through on that promise. We're not okay. We're struggling. And you allowed this. And if you were a better man, you wouldn't have allowed this. And so I held my dad accountable for the whole thing. And this created a rift between me and my dad that grew as I entered into my teenage years. I was playing sports, and I always resented that I had to go and see him, spend time with him. It's frustrating to me. And eventually reached a point where then there were some things that sort of occurred during this that were total misinterpretations on my side. But there were some things that occurred that basically when I was in college, I made the decision, like, I'm not talking to that guy. And I cut him out. And so then over the following years, I was basically on a mission to prove my self-worth. So again, my resume was off the charts because all I cared about was basically like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you this is the way that you handle things. This is the way you handle your business. You fix problems. You get things done. And yet I was never actually satisfied. And I was quite empty inside. And so I met my wife, and I'd had many girlfriends through the years, and they were wonderful people. But none of them had ever actually said to me what my wife said to me. She turned to me and she said, "You got to call your dad." And we were getting ready to get married. And I picked up the phone. I dialed him up. And it was the first time we talked in more than 10 years. And he welcomed me back instantly. No, hey, what were you thinking? What was the deal? Just instant, hey, I want you in my life, and I want a relationship with you from that minute, period. And the first time I saw him was actually at our wedding. So the first time I saw him in more than 10 years. We had a lot of work to do, but we had great years together, Doug, repairing that relationship. And what I have discovered is, and there's certainly more that we could talk about. This is, by the way, this is chapter 8 of my new book. There's this entire conversation. Because at times I have felt that I'm the one who is the patient. Like, I may be the doctor, but I am sometimes learning from my patients and trying to figure out what I need. And I'm actually quite happy to report that I'm in a great place right now. But that's not where I was for most of my life. So trying to put together the pieces of the puzzle to understand what I needed. Yeah, I had to stop eating junk food. Yeah, I had to stop binge drinking. Right? I had to do those things. But you know why I was doing those things? Because I was empty inside. Because I didn't really love myself. Because I was unwilling to accept the love of my father. and that hurt me. And so those things were just the manifestation of a person who's crying out, sad. And so the healing that allowed me to get to where I am today was not just changing diet. Yes, it was changing diet. It was part of the equation. And that's, of course, a few chapters in the new book. I'm going to talk about that. But it also was healing relationships and addressing traumas. And the thing that lagged the most, Doug, so I sort of see like there's like maturity in your life. There's things that progress at different stages and at different paces, right? So like a person's a late bloomer. Well, what does that even mean? Late bloomer in what, right? So like my nutrition matured quickly from like 2012 to 2015. Boom. Like I was locked in. I had great diet. And my relationship with my father was coming along and making great progress. And the one thing that was missing that I really needed in my life was I needed to understand my purpose and to understand how I fit into the broader scheme of things. And no success was filling that for me. No, no amount of money, no amount of goal-oriented achievements. Nothing was filling that for me. And what has helped me the most is actually my family, which has opened up my heart to the possibility that there's something more. And and when I say this, I just want to be clear, like I'm not asking anyone to believe what I believe. What I'm saying to people, though, is that if you look out across the entirety of human history, across the globe, different pockets of humanity and civilization, you would think that the default for people would be that we exist in a world of what you see, what you feel, what you can touch, what's real. And if that were true, if what you believe is those things that are real, then every single culture would have been atheistic. And I'm not even aware, Doug, of a single atheistic culture in human history. All of them ultimately reached the same conclusion. There must be something bigger. There has to be. And we can call it different things, but we're talking about the same thing. And so I'm of the belief that there's a special spot inside of us, inside of our heart, that really is yearning for that because we've seen this. And if you try to reject that and force it away, you do it to your own peril. You suffer the consequences of basically closing your heart. But if you can open it up, this is like what happens not at an organized event. This is what happens when you're sitting by yourself in a quiet time and you discover that there's something there. And so that to me is, the beginning of a conversation about how if we want to be truly well, if we want to be truly healthy, then we must provide what we're starving for. And part of what we're starving for is to be connected to other humans and to be loved. And part of what we're starving for too is to understand how we fit into the grand scheme of things.
We'll get you back to this episode of The Adversity Advantage in just 1 second, but first I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Timeline Nutrition. As you know, I've been a huge fan of Timeline and their MitoPure gummies for a long time. And listen, January doesn't need to be about reinventing yourself. It's about actually taking care of the you that already exists. And if longevity feels overwhelming, here's the good news. It usually starts with one simple daily habit. And for me, that's been MitoPure's longevity gummies. These are the first ever longevity gummies designed to support your cellular energy so you feel stronger, clearer, and more vibrant all year long. They're also the only clinically proven urolithin A gummy that actually helps you renew your cells' powerhouses, your mitochondria, so you can keep showing up as your best self every decade. I like to think of it as charging my internal batteries every morning. I keep the gummies right next to my coffee, so it's part of my routine, and it's the one longevity habit that I actually look forward to. The gummies aren't just good for you, they're quite tasty as well. And honestly, if you already feel like you're taking too many supplements, this is a welcome upgrade. 2026 is going to be the year where I focus on quality and not quantity when it comes to my supplements. Here's what I also love. They support steady, sustained energy, and they're clinically shown to support muscle strength and function. They help you stay active, capable, and vibrant as you age. And the formula is super clean. It's also vegan, gluten-free, non-GMO, sugar-free, allergen-free, plus Clean Label Project and NSF certified. Remember, you can't out-train low energy. It starts deeper than that, and it starts the cellular level. So don't let another year go by where you're feeling less than your best. Grab 35% off your 1-month subscription of MitoPure Gummies at timeline.com/Doug35. That's timeline.com/Doug35 while the offer lasts. Now back to the show. So I promise the audience we'll get into some tactical stuff for nutrition, gut health, and stuff at some point in the episode, but I want to stay here for a second because this is really important. And I think it's really important because of what we've mentioned a couple times in that you can change your health, you can change your gut, you can do all the things. But if you don't address what's going on inside your heart, like inside your mind, like none of it matters, right? And for you, it seemed like there was a lot of anger and resentment. There's a lot of similarities in our childhood, and we can talk offline about that. But for the sake of this conversation, like there was a lot of anger and resentment in your walk with your dad. And a lot of it stemmed from lack of acceptance, feeling unlovable, like all these things that you kind of described. Did you ever get to a place where you felt like in your heart that your dad was actually proud of you?
100%. I think he always was proud of me. I think he always loved me. I didn't understand it until I had children of my own. So when my daughter was born, my oldest, she's 11 now. I held her in my hands, and there were a whole bunch of things that clicked into place in that moment, Doug. So suddenly I have a purpose. I am here for this child. I will do anything. I will do anything to take care of this child and provide for this child. I felt that. I never felt such a mission like that was just locked in inside of me. There was a love for this child that is undeniable, instant, powerful, more powerful than any love that I'd ever felt in my entire life. So the love that I had for her allowed me to understand the love that my father had for me. Right? And the last thing is that she came from somewhere. This is not just like chance. This is not just like a bunch of cells got connected and created neurons. She has a soul. Her life is defined by that. She's wonderfully and beautifully made exactly the way that she was meant to be. And where did she come from? I don't know, and science will never answer that question. But that by itself is enough evidence that there's something there. There's a place that she came from, and wherever that place is, there's something there.
It's beautiful, man. And I know that like family is really important to you. And I know that like relationships and family, it's like one of the most important things for overall health and longevity, which is why, again, I'm glad we're talking about this because like if you look at data on like the happiest people, the most like well people, it's people who have like the best interpersonal relationships.
You know why that is?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So think about this for a quick moment. where we came from over millions of years was hunter-gatherer tribal people. There was no city. There was no money. The measure of wealth was not like your material goods, because that would be silly. Because you could have those material goods, but if you didn't have people around you that supported you and loved you, you would get killed in a second, because it was a brutal world, right? The measure of wealth was your human connection, because ultimately the people that you're connected to, you reinforce survival for each other. You make it possible. You make life possible. Without each other, life becomes not possible. When you get sick, who will take care of you? When you fall and twist your ankle, who's going to lift you up? Right? So you needed each other. You needed that web of human connection in order to survive. And so the measure of wealth was human relationships. And it started with your own family. This is your core. But it included the other people around you that were part of this tribe. The tribe was not, like I have 630,000 followers on Instagram. That's not a tribe, right? The tribe was like a couple families that got together, and we're going to basically defend each other. Doug, if you and I were in the same tribe together, if you got attacked, I would step up and I would fight to defend you, and I'd put my life on the line, and you would have done the same for me. And that is not the same as a like or a swipe or a comment on social media, right? There's a whole different level of meaning there. And there's also the fact that I would know that you would do that. I would know that, right? And that's a true human bond. That's a life-giving bond. So it's important to understand that this is where we come from, and this is why you can chase money. That's what culture says. You can chase all the money in the world, and it's like sugar for the soul. It'll never bring you the joy that you're actually searching for. But if you lean into the best things in life are free, if you lean into relationships, you will find what you're searching for.
Having each other's backs is so important. And I want to talk about your wife, because I know like your wife has had such a great impact on your life. I know she was instrumental in like your health journey. She told you to call your dad. She kind of, from my understanding, helped you in your spiritual walk. Talk about your wife. Like, how did you know she was the one, and what makes her so special?
There are, so reflecting, like I'm in midlife, right? I'm 45 years old. And you get to a point where you can reflect back on the journey to where you are today. And of all the things that I've encountered in my life, Doug, the scariest thing that I can conjure up is, what if I hadn't met her? Right? Because it was a chance thing. I had to be single. She had to be single. And we had to be connected somehow. And we both had to like take the risk that we would be willing to consider the possibility that there's something there. And I had no clue that first, chance encounter would guide us to where we are today. But what I have discovered, Doug, is that when you're with the right person, they bring out the best in you. You bring out the best in them. You're far more powerful together than you are alone. And not to like sound like a big brother or something, Doug, forgive me for that. I am a big brother. But I think it's really important that as you progress in your relationship with your spouse, that you focus on the wonderful, beautiful things that they provide to you. Because we all have shit. I definitely do. Right? And if we focus on the negative side of things in our relationships, you're creating a negative framework and you will spiral and crash. But if you focus on the great things that they provide to you in your life that make this wonderful, joyous life possible. My wife is an incredible spouse. She's an incredible mother. She sets the culture of our home. She provides our kids with that moralistic and also spiritual framework. And these are really important things to me. And I wouldn't be able to do that without her. And so it's really important to celebrate that, because in celebrating that, what I've discovered is that actually you bring out the best in other people by focusing on the good.
Such great advice. And I'm curious to hear like your thoughts. You've kind of touched on this, but so many people, they're trying to like improve their health. They're trying to improve like their gut and all this stuff. And they're trying to like feel better about their overall outlook on life. And the one thing, there's like two things that I think cause the most stress in life. It's relationships and money, right? We've talked about money, and I don't want to make this a conversation about how to make more money, but I want to dive in to the relationship aspect. Like how has your relationship with your wife like improved, not just your mental health, but how you've dealt with all this stuff in your past?
When you have a person in your life who loves you and know that would step up to take care of you and help you when you really need them, that's a really meaningful thing. Knowing that a person has your back gives you the strength that you need to be resilient, to take on challenges and persevere. There's the open acknowledgement, honestly, that life is hard. Adulthood is hard. Challenges come to the surface. You have to face them. And facing them alone is a scary, lonely idea. And I think that's where a lot of people are right now, Doug. And that's why it's not just lonely and not just sad, but that there's a lot of fear there, right? Whereas for me, if my family has my back, whatever happens in my life, professionally or otherwise, so be it. Because we will get by, we will have enough, and we will have each other. And that's the most important thing.
I think that when you have people's backs, in no matter what relationship you're in, if it's talking about friendships, we're talking about romantic relationships, it just goes such a long way. I mean, I think there's a reason, I forget what the hormone is, but I had Adam Lane Smith on, who's like a marriage therapist. And he was talking about that the one of the best ways for couples to grow closer is to deal with hard things together, not purposefully, but like to like know that you have each other's backs, that you're a team, that you'll grow closer. And I think that explains why, like when there's infidelity, it's not the infidelity that pains someone. It's the betrayal of knowing that your partner didn't have your back in that moment. I think it's why when something happens and there's like an argument or a problem at home and somebody runs away, and goes like into their room or whatever and doesn't want to talk, why it stings is because there's a sense of betrayal that person didn't have your back in that moment. I can go on and on with examples, but you bring up such a really good point in that, like, it's so important in relationship to be able to like know that you have someone that has your back and that no matter what, like you can count on them. Just because like at the end of the day, like, I mean, relationship, I'm about to get married in a few weeks and I'm super excited. And that's going to be an amazing day and a very positive feeling and all the things, right? Honeymoon, same thing. That being said, that's a very small part of our overall relationship. And in that, the rest of it, there's going to be like challenges, right? Life experiences and challenges. And while those times are important, I know that our relationship is not going to, what's going to strengthen our relationship over time is our ability to continue to, overcome challenges together. Right. So I'll let you kind of take that from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you face challenging things, it either is going to make you stronger together or it's going to split you apart. And, unfortunately, I feel like, Doug, this is one of the things that I discuss in chapter 8 of my new book is, which by the way, chapter 8, in case the listeners can't tell, is I think it's the greatest chapter I've ever written. I can't wait for people to read it. Like, I can't wait for people to see what they think about it. And I hope they'll reach out and share with me. But anyway, um, one of the things that I discuss in chapter 8 is that we as a culture have made some horrible choices, right? Because there's things that are like our culture, like what we like built as a framework of our society that we value. And two main ones that we have prioritized are materialism, like focus on outward wealth, and individualism, proving that you can do it alone, right? Like basically, look out at the world. Are we not living in the pursuit of validation that our life has a meaning by trying to accumulate as much money as possible? Or by proving that we can go out and do something, whether that be accumulate money or status or power or whatever it might be, right? Is that not the existence? But the problem is, Doug, is that those things, I'm saying that what actually brings us joy, what actually makes us satisfied and happy, is to be massively and powerfully connected to people that we love and to feel loved back from them. And to live a life with purpose and be aligned with that purpose and to wake up every day and chase that purpose, right? Those two things, to me, are what actually deliver what we're searching for. But the problem is that if you are chasing the pursuit of money, or you are trying to prove that you can do something individually, that ultimately is creating a tension that's pulling you away. It's pulling you away from those relationships. It's pulling you away from the pursuit of purpose because you're chasing money instead. And so ultimately, it breeds unhappiness because you can chase those things. You can think they're going to satisfy you when you get there, and they never do. It's sugar for the soul. Tastes great for 2 seconds. Feel like crap afterwards.
So if we're talking about like honesty in this conversation and just, having like these harsh conversations that lead to like fruitful things in life, like looking back, I know you're a big part of your purpose now is being a father, being a family man, being a great husband, outside of work and stuff. Um, is there anything looking back that you didn't get to do with your dad that you're really excited to do with your kids?
So I didn't get a chance to say this during my earlier conversation about my relationship with my dad, but I didn't realize until I was an adult and I had kids of my own that he was a wonderful dad. He was actually a phenomenal dad. Every weekend in the summertime, we would hop in the car on Friday afternoon, like 5 o'clock after we got off of work, and we drove up into the Adirondack Mountains, Doug. It was about an hour away. The days are long. You can get up there, set up a tent, and you can camp for the weekend. And we would come back down from the mountains. This was 3 boys who are a bunch of like a bunch of crazy kids, right? Crazy young men running around, and just my dad. He had no help. It was just him. That is not easy. That is not easy. I have 4 kids. I don't know that I would take 4 kids camping by myself. Okay. And then, like, when we had a vacation, he always loaded up the car. Are we going north? Are we going south? I don't know, but we're doing something. And, like, again, it was just him, 3 boys, road tripping it, exploring America, exploring Canada, right? Getting out there. And the last thing, I can't speak to what happened between my parents. They're adults, right? I was a child. I don't really know. And I don't really, I don't feel like there's any value to continuing to ruminate on processing the details of what happened between them. They're adults. Something happened. But what I do know is this. This is something I didn't realize until I was an adult myself, Doug. And this is part of like the processing that I went through. My dad never actually said anything bad about my mom. Not even once. I remember a few times when my grandmother, my dad's mom, would start to say something, he would shut it down immediately. No, I'm not talking about that. So, uh, anyway, I think that like what I've realized is that people like my kids, they don't care that Daddy's a New York Times bestseller, right? Like that doesn't like really land or do anything of meaning. What they care about is like my son wants to go shoot hoops. Can I give him 15 minutes? You know, my two little daughters, they they want to play and hug and be silly. And my 11-year-old daughter, right? We could be like listening to music together or having a conversation about a book or a movie, right? Like they're looking for time. They're looking for to be connected. So isn't that what we're all looking for? Ultimately, like I appreciate when people are achieving things that they want to achieve, but ultimately, what I would really value is just the chance to spend some time with them.
Human connection is so important, man. And you know, it does kind of make sense because for me, in my journey, when I was a kid, I was significantly overweight, wearing husky clothes as a 12, 13-year-old boy, which was, you know, not normal at that time. And wasn't good at sports, even though I was the guy that woke up, you know, early morning to watch Stuart Scott on Sports Center. Like I loved, uh, RIP by the way. And but I just wasn't good. And I've struggled to grasp that, to grasp the what's wrong with me. My parents also went through a divorce when I was young, and there was stuff around that. And I say all that because I wasn't happy as a kid, and I looked at other kids that I thought were happy, and they were in shape. They had, they were like, you know, dating all the cool girls, all the things, right? And I was like, man, like when I get out of jail, like that's what I want to do. I'm gonna get like continue to get fit. I'm gonna get super jacked. I'm going to get attention from girls. I'm going to do all these things and I'm going to be freaking happy. Well, I'll tell you what, I was still an asshole. I was still that same jerk in the mirror, just now more fit, right? And it was worse for me because I felt like I had lied to myself and been sold a bill of goods and that I chased the wrong things for the wrong reasons. And the external validation, I mean, call it what it is. It's a drug. You just can't physically, you can't put it up your nose. You can't put it in your arm, but you can put it in your mind and in your heart, right? And it's a problem. And I think that I fell victim to that, and it wrecked my life in different ways. And I say that because I do think that achievement and success, it's all good. Like I don't want to demonize making money. I think if that's what fills your cup every morning, it's a huge problem. I think if your cup is already full with your with the the non external things, and then you're good there, and then everything else can just be like overflow, an extension of that. So I totally relate to like what you're saying. I mean, a lot of your journey, I mean, it's very similar to like a lot of stuff that I've gone through.
But that external validation is the same external validation that I was chasing through my self achievements. And the interesting thing, like Doug, my wife, she comes from a quite ideal family, right? Loving parents who love each other. They have a great marriage, great relationship, and they're a supportive family. They take care of one another, right? It's and the funny thing about it is that all of those desires to prove your self-worth, or like some of the things that I went through of like drowning myself in alcohol. Um, like my wife had no desire to do any of that. Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you inflict harm on your body? Why would you make yourself feel horrible? Why would you do that? It's a quite rational question. And the issue is that, well, yeah, I did those things because I thought that that's what I needed.
Well, and oftentimes our external world and our external the choices we make are a reflection about how we feel about ourselves. Like you're thinking of in a very rational way now, looking back at it. But as you know, somebody who's struggled with addiction, when I was younger, like it's like they're not you're not being rational. It's like how many times do you see someone making choices that you just know are horrible for their life, but you find out years later they were really suffering, and and in ways that we don't know, because I think a lot of times we think of suffering as people that maybe don't have a bed to sleep in, or somebody who's terminally ill or whatever, but that we don't think of the low grade, level 3 or 4 suffering that just slowly eats away at you.
Yeah, but I think that's to me. So to me, that's part of like my opportunity and responsibility as a medical doctor is that if I look out at the world, right? Because I write for a mass audience. My books are read by at least hundreds of thousands. Um, if I look out at the world and see things that I believe are inflicting harm on people, I have an obligation to call that out, right? And to try to provide an opportunity for people to see this themselves. And I'm not, and it's never, I would never force, I mean, I think like anyone who's read my books knows I don't force things down a person's throat, right? What I do is I encourage you and I try to show you like the story so that you understand yourself, you understand how it all fits, right? And what the opportunity is to make choices that are otherwise and where that can lead you. And I think that like a core point from me, you asked me, like we kind of dug in, we diverted away from fiber and nutrition, right? And away from other aspects like circadian rhythm that are like a big focus in my book, um, to talk about like these other things. And the key here, Doug, is that healing comes in many forms. Healing comes in many forms. So in my own life, what did I need to heal? I needed everything that you find in this book, right? Because basically, like what I'm sharing with you are the things that I've learned through personal experience, but also that that there are clear evidence-based studies to back up the words. There's over 1,400 references in my book, Doug. So like everything that I write, I back up in the way that if a scientist were to say, hey, I don't agree with you, then let me pull the paper out to show you what I meant. And but at the same time, I also think like healing comes in many forms. And for each of us, we need to figure out what that looks like. What is missing? What is the thing that we could provide that will change everything?
So we got 2 minutes. Share like the most important nutrition principles you want people to know to calm inflammation and restore gut health and well-being. And then also, tell people where they can buy the book, and a little bit more about that. I will also say like Will, and I are really close friends. He's one of the best people I know. We talk regularly about like, we have real conversations, and, you know, he's one of the few people, and I say few because there's many of a few, but a few that I know that when he puts information out there, it comes from the heart and soul, and he does it in a way that's easily, you can easily implement it into your life, where it's just simple, and just no BS, no fluff, simple stuff. So I highly encourage people to check out his latest book, because if he puts something out into the world, it's going to be a banger. And I think the world of you, man. I mean, thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything. But before we let everyone go, like best tips for the gut with nutrition, and then where can people get the book?
Yeah, yeah. So do I still get 2 minutes, or did you just take
Yeah,
one of my
man.
two?
Go ahead.
All right, cool. Okay, so if I were to summarize my views on nutrition as I sit here today, right, this where I am in 2026, um, it doesn't matter what you call your diet. Dietary labels are annoying to me because we have tribal wars on the internet about which diet is right. The right diet is the one you're actually going to do. The label is silly, so forget that. And what I come back to is that if you can get these 4 things that these 4 things are missing in the average American's diet, like hard. right? Their body is starving for these 4 things. If you can get these 4 things, then you have fulfilled everything that you need to have an anti-inflammatory diet. So, and it doesn't matter what the label is, just get these 4 things. Fiber, polyphenols, those are the colors of the plant-based foods. Fiber, polyphenols, healthy fats. So I'm talking about avocados, I'm talking about extra virgin olive oil, I'm talking about nuts, seeds, and fermented food. And if you can get those 4 things, then you have a healthy diet. So the book is called Plant Powered Plus. Plant powered, obviously, for the reasons that I just discussed a moment ago. It doesn't mean 100% plant powered. It could mean many things. Again, forget the label. Focus on the four workhorses of plant powered nutrition. And the plus is the conversation that occurs around circadian rhythm, fasting, supplement stacks, morning and night, like exactly what you should be taking to reduce inflammation. And what you and I have focused on here today, which is the brain-gut connection, which includes trauma, human connection, spiritual connection. So like those are like the core opportunities that I see for healing and reducing inflammation in our body. And it all comes together in a 3-phase protocol where like literally you will make this your own. You will have the tools on the table and you choose which of those tools you're going to apply into your life. And I expect you to feel the difference. So the book is available everywhere the books are sold. And also I just want to add real quick, I have a new YouTube channel, The Gut Health MD. You can find me on social media, The Gut Health MD, and you can come to my website, theguthealthmd.com, where I have like basically things that I want to give away if you order the book. And I also have a wonderful email list, which is like a Substack, but it's free.
Amazing, brother. I'll be sure to plug all of that stuff in the show notes. And like I said a few minutes ago, I think the world of you. And I think that when you put stuff out there, it's for the best. So I highly encourage people to dive in.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us.
You don't need a test to tell you the state of your gut health. You don't need to pay for expensive microbiome tests or for blood food sensitivity tests or things like this. It's quite simple. When your gut is in a good place, okay, you can eat whatever the heck you want, within reason, of course, but you can eat whatever.